Hey everyone, it's Devin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackard, and I seem to find myself at J&J Antiques. Electric Palace. And that looks like Odyssey Community Church. And we're looking at the very bell used to create the original Whit's ending. Going through the underground tunnel through Whit's End. But that means we're at Whit's End? Hey everybody, this is Devin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackard.
And I'm hungry.
And I probably just at the start of this episode played some footage of me at Whit's End, Colorado Springs, Colorado, 80995.
Surely that wasn't you there, because if
so-
you were the one who was there, you would have brought me back something, and you didn't.
That was, it feels so long ago that I was there now. I can't believe this is the first night we're recording since that happened.
I mean, it doesn't really feel like it as much, because we have talked about Odyssey, like, a lot in the past couple months. It's just we haven't done any recording.
Yes. Well, because I showed you all my pictures from Whit's End, and then I also told you all of the dirty secrets that I learned while I was hanging out with Bob Smithhauser, and I was hanging out with J.B. Lewis.
We learned all those juicy, juicy secrets that shall never be repeated.
Exactly.
Lest we be assassinated by Focus on the Family.
Bob Smithhauser told me all of the things that are to come in the show. Also, this is the first beginning of an episode that we filmed since Will Ryan passed away.
Oh, I was going to ask about that.
Which also feels like it happened so long ago at this point, in a way, but also, you know, obviously feels very recent. And I've been putting disclaimers in the episodes that have come out since then. I think there's 3 episodes that have come out since he passed, but they had all been pre-recorded already. And the last episode, we'd recorded the first half already. So we didn't address it until now, but I think everyone is aware of that at this point. We made a post on the Facebook page when it happened. I
don't know what Rose's thing is called. I don't remember what it's called.
Rose's podcast is Odyssey Moments.
Okay,
I believe. So there'll be a special episode of Rose Beasley's podcast, or Snubs, as you may know her, with a Will Ryan tribute, which will be composed of audio from a bunch of different content creators, including us. So stay tuned to that, and obviously we'll link it when it comes out on... We'll mention it on the episode, put it in the description, put it on Facebook, all that jazz.
So we did record Odyssey content technically over the holidays. It just was not for our podcast.
That's true. I suppose at some point we probably should talk about our thoughts on the situation. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's that much to be said that hasn't been said already. The team is still figuring out how to deal with it. There's no perfect solution for it, obviously. They've probably said something on the official podcast beyond, you know, announcing the fact that it happened. Obviously, the coming album, 72, which is all out by now, ends with a 3-parter, which is completely Buck and Meltzner-centric. All of this stuff has been going on that's very Eugene-heavy in terms of overall plot. So I... Like I said, there's no perfect choice. There's a number of options that could happen, whether they found a replacement voice actor right away, or they sent Eugene away explicitly or implicitly for a time, like they did with Novacom, and then brought him back later once they waited some time and then found a different replacement. or they just write Eugene out of the show altogether. Personally, I think that the best choice is to find a replacement voice actor, because while it feels weird and uncomfortable to have someone where it's like, oh, that's obviously not the person that it is, and that feels weird, I think that it is, for all that that Will cared about the show and cared about Eugene's character, I think we would rather have someone come in where we have to use suspension of disbelief and still at least be able to get resolution on Eugene as a character and what's going on with him, than to have him just like pushed aside, whether temporarily or permanently, and just be like, oh, he's gone now. I would rather have the suspension of disbelief of a voice that isn't Will Ryan's and be able to have Eugene carry out, the stories and the plots that are supposed to be happening for him and his family right now.
Yeah.
Those are my feelings.
I'm of the same opinion. You and I talked about it.
Obviously, when it happened, yeah. I mean, obviously, I didn't even think about the Eugene side of things for like weeks after it happened, because we're, focused on Will Ryan, the human being and individual, who is an incredible person and someone that we both knew and admired.
Which we delve into more of our personal thoughts on Rose's.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes of audio from us. But yeah, obviously it was very shocking when it happened. I saw today that on the AIOC that they've uploaded a Best of Eugene Part 1 album collection of episodes.
When tonight when I was
which the last episode that's in that collection is Out to Sea, which is Will's
favorite Eugene episode.
Well, it was wild because I was like, did they know that he had that particular feeling about it? Like, he mentioned it in our interview. But
he probably said something to them.
Yeah, I'm curious if he mentioned that otherwise, because if not, that's a wild choice to pick out of Eugene's entire
run. I mean, he did tell us how much he liked it, so I'm imagining he would have told them too. But when I was waiting for us to record tonight, I happened to re-listen to Drake the Cosmic Copper because I didn't know how much time I had left to record, and if we were going to do Voice of Freedom, I kind of wanted to re-listen to both parts of that too. And it had the OAC season 1 bits where they would clip all these different bits from different episodes of character voices, and they were clipping
at the start of the episode, you mean?
Yeah. From
those
Connie
little stings.
Yeah, it was clips of Connie teaching Eugene how to drive, and I think that was the first time I've heard Will's voice since.
Speaking of season 1 of the AIOC, one of maybe the weirdest pick that they put in that album for the Best of Eugene, Part 1 granted, so there will be more, I guess, was In a Kingdom Far Away, which, for those who don't remember, is the 3rd episode to happen in the OAC, and it's where Camilla is imagining a fairy tale about a land that's centered around onions for its economy. And
maybe
Eugene is one of the voices in there.
Episodes Will liked. I
think he does a voice in it. It's just, I don't think he speaks as Eugene in the episode, and it's just a very weird thing to pick, out of everything Eugene has gone through.
Maybe they just wanted one where Will did a voice, but you would think they would call it Best of Will Ryan.
We have Connie parts 1 and 2. We have The Time Has Come and Feud for Thought and License to Drive, and then I don't know, just interesting choices. We don't have the Eugene Returns trilogy, but we'll put that in there. Anyways, so what are we talking about today, Victoria?
Also just quick, our thoughts and prayers go out to Will's friends and his family. We have been praying for them since it happened. Okay, so this episode is the first of the Snow Quartet.
Yes.
What is this one called again?
The Snow Must Go On.
Okay, that seems like a fitting title. I almost just accidentally hung up with you when I was closing chat.
Well, thank you. Thank you for not doing that.
You're welcome. So
this is episode 918, and it's written by Kathy Buchanan.
What's their family called again?
The Calhouns.
Right, the Calhouns. So we got the parents.
There's the first episode with all 4 of them.
Yeah. So I had their names and now they're gone.
Joseph
now I just
and
remember
Kayla
Cooper's.
and Cooper and Trey.
Thank you.
Kayla Calhoun, not to be confused with Carla, who's the Perkins mom.
Kayla is an absolute queen. She's so good. She just keeps getting dunked on in this episode, like in loving ways. And I was like, oh, queen, you don't deserve this. Like
no respect.
Like in a funny, joking way. Before I forget to say it, there was one bit in this episode that made me, like, not only laugh, but, like, laugh harder than I have at a joke in an Odyssey episode in quite a while. It was when Cooper and Trey were playing, like, their trivia game or whatever, and it was, I think Trey said, like, dices. Was like the plural of dice, and then Cooper said die, and he was like, that's kind of harsh. And I was like dying laughing, and I was like, that's the most like genuinely real, I could see this happening, or I could see myself being in part of this conversation that I've heard in a long time on Odyssey. Just the most pure like sibling or friend exchange I've heard in quite a while, and it was so funny, just like the way the lines were delivered. And I
hate that one bald guy in Final Fantasy. Rude. Okay, he's just a fictional character. Rude. Look, I mean, I'm not trying to insult all bald people. I'm just saying I don't like the way that he looks, the Pitbull looking one. Rude. Okay, get off my post then.
But, jokes like that are just really funny, especially, like, the more deadpan you can just, like, deliver
The more deadpan and the more, like, the contrast between the more deadpan and the more extreme that like the misinterpretation is.
Level.
The more extreme the misinterpretation is.
Yeah.
Die. Well, okay.
Like, that's kind of extreme.
What happens in this episode, Victoria?
So funny. Like, that made you laugh too, right?
Yeah.
That was really funny.
It didn't get me as hard as you did, but
it didn't get me, like, crazy
that
hard,
really...
but I probably laughed for, like, a solid, like, 5 seconds or something.
I'm glad that really tickled you. Good. I love it when there's just one joke, and you're like, I don't know why that got to me as good as it did, but that just...
When I think of jokes that just really hit with Odyssey, now it's going to be... That might become my go-to for the show now. I don't know. I might forget about it tomorrow. We'll see. But also just the TV show... Just the sticking your hands up and Dylan and Eugene waving and all the people being held at gunpoint in the Western episode is still really, really funny.
Everyone, go check out our Go West Young Man video review.
That's my favorite of our reviews for the TV shows.
Nice.
Yeah, I've probably watched that one myself like 3 or 4 times.
My favorite part of that review is...
This is me clinking my face.
That's a good one. I forgot about that. I was going to say when he, like... drinks the thing and they're like, oh, the nitroglycerin. He's like, it's just water. He died 2 days later of whatever, of like gangrene.
Of like parasites and gangrene.
Of preventable diseases.
He was like, oh, it's just water. And we're like, yeah, that's going to kill you too. It's the Old West.
It's just water. I'm like, he died, and 17 hours later from waterborne infection.
Like, and the water was like pure white, and I was like, that is not just water.
Yeah. Okay, what happens in the snow? Let's go on.
So, the Calhouns are going to go on a vacation.
Woo, beach.
They get snowed in, so they can't. All the, like, planes aren't able to leave and stuff.
We're familiar.
Mm-hmm. So, Kayla does a forecast on the TV a little bit into the episode. Just basically saying, like, everyone's snowed in. Which, these 4 episodes, at least what I think you agreed with me, are most likely all going to take place, like, simultaneously.
Yes, or so immediately, I think, like, adjacently. But I think possibly... concurrently with different characters in ways that will intertwine. At the least, they're all about the same storm.
Yeah. So I definitely think that, like, Kayla broadcast is going to make it into the next 3 episodes.
I didn't think about that. That's a good point. Probably.
Like, the second she said it, I was like, oh, this is a thing that's being broadcast. It's going to show up in all the other ones.
And that's what'll show us the timeline synchronization.
Yeah. And also, I'm just trying to think of them, like, interacting with other people. Wally and Jay might possibly be another focus.
Yep, because they phoned Wally.
Yeah, because they phoned Wally, which might make us, like, I don't know, we might see, like, different bits of the same characters. We're going to see, like, at just, like, different time periods.
Kingdom Hearts 1 fragmentary passage kind of MCU, like the timeline where they interact with each other and connect the dots.
We're going to do, like, an 1.5 hour long edit, just putting everything chronologically.
Yeah, we're going to have full Pepe Sylvia, like, breakdown of all the connections.
Contact. Everglow, get him to tie everything together.
Yeah, we're going to create an Everglow timeline edit of this episode.
Every now and then, it'll just have, like, Ansem's journals, but it's just going to be dead space because it's an audio medium. So you're just going to have to guess what Subject X is up to. I'm so excited for me and Annie to get farther in Kingdom Hearts and get to the Subject X stuff.
So they're snowed in.
The kids start playing, like, a trivia game, like Trivial Pursuit or something.
Yeah. Which
Chris makes a joke about later in the episode. I guess Chris is also snowed in where she is in Odyssey. Chris lives in Odyssey, but also is, like, omniscient and has, like, people working for her.
I mean, are you considering every Chris wrap-up and intro across the course of the entire show part of one simultaneous canon of Chris? Because if so, I think you're going to have some difficulties.
I think I do too. Wooten has delivered to Chris.
That's true.
Before packages. Yeah. Wooten's Broken Pencil show. So.
But that was also Wooten's Broken Pencil show.
That is a fact, yes. The thing about Wooten's Broken Pencil show is it does have a moral, but it doesn't put the moral on the back of the album case.
Which is the point.
It has, like...
The point is the point.
3 question marks, and that always
it would be the finest point that will ever be made.
That always bothered me, because they could have just... Like, I get where they're going with that. But they could have just, like, put the moral on the back.
I also don't know what they would have written that would fit on there.
I don't know. They could have made room.
I like the fact that
I
like the fact that they put 3 question marks personally.
You know what? I can't hang up on you. Darn it.
Storms
I
out
quit
of the room.
The podcast.
You can't quit. I'm fired.
You know what? You're fired. I'm gonna change what this podcast is about.
What happens next, Victoria?
So basically the whole deal with, like, the snow must go on is they're trying to get, what's the dad's name again? Joseph to the hospital where he works. He is a doctor. Because this kid got, like, a broken arm or something.
Traumatic brain trauma.
Never mind, I was very far off. Their dad is Stephen Strange, and he needs to get to the hospital so he can operate on this kid's brain.
Yeah, it's a traumatic brain injury. It's life-threatening.
And if they had gone on vacation, he wouldn't have been able to operate on the kid, and the kid wouldn't have been okay. So they're just like, oh, things happen for a reason. And so they're trying to get to the hospital. The roads are really bad, so really bad. Get into a car accident, basically, but they're okay. But they, like, walk off into the
snowy
wild
abyss.
Like it's Misery or something like that. And then they find Hagler's junkyard. They break in and call him. And then
their
Wally...
phones are dead, and they have to build a phone charger off of a bicycle to charge the phone so they can call Wally to get the code for his office so they can get the keys to his truck to drive to the hospital.
Kayla's like, I know how to do this. And then her kids are like, how do you know how to do this? And she's like, 'cause I'm a scientist. And they're like, you're a scientist? And I was like, what do you think a meteorologist is? And I don't know how much work you actually do yourself as a meteorologist.
I'm going to talk about that.
Okay, good. Not that I'm saying they don't do anything, but...
Because I was also surprised.
I don't know. Is there a difference between just being like a general weather person and a meteorologist?
I thought so.
Like,
and I mean, I guess you can be a meteorologist without being on the news. There must be some weather people
who just like don't do any research and they just like read off like a...
I'll talk about it later. That's what I thought all weather people on the news did. I didn't think...
What are the screens called again? Like a
green
prompt...
Screen?
No, like a prompt screen
teleprompter?
That you're like... Yeah, teleprompter. Thank you. So they call Wally. He drives them to the hospital. And then Joseph saves the kid. And that's the episode. I know that one of these episodes is going to be about the Whitakers because I have seen the album art of it.
Yeah, I think that's the next episode has Whit.
Yeah.
In the art.
So I saw like, I think Whit and Jason in the picture. So Wilson may also be
Mayhaps.
in it. Be cool if Jana was in it. She's not going to be though. Can you imagine she was? Can you imagine if Jenny was in it?
I mean, that young Jenny.
No, not like Monty's sister, Jenny.
I thought you meant like a flashback. I mean, I didn't think like the ghost of Jenny.
No, yeah. There's too many Jennys. No, I meant blind Jenny.
Jenny Roberts is here. And she's staying at Whit's house for Christmas.
Jenny Roberts is...
What if Maury and Suzu are there? If they're snowed in, they live at Whit's house.
I hope that happens.
It's probably not because it's the OAC, but it could happen.
Probably not.
Probably not, but it could.
It
technically would be weird if they're not. It would technically be weird if they're not there.
Did this happen? Did this album chronologically happen before they were adopted?
I mean, that was like 2 years ago at this point.
Or also,
right?
would they go back to be with their actual like parents for Christmas?
Oh. Well, parent.
Their dad.
I don't know.
Their deadbeat dad.
I don't know. Their dad sucks.
They're all according to Keikaku dad.
Yeah, he sucks. Probably not.
Every now and then I think of that joke I made, and I'm just like, wow, I'm such an icon.
Yeah. So we learned that Trey's in the Square One Club. That's new. They have an aunt, and she gives them Christmas presents to her nephews every year with something that rhymes with their name, which I think is cute and funny as like a joke. Obviously,
I didn't hear that bit. I thought it was just like she got us gifts and they happened all rhyme, and then I was just like, "What is this bit?" And I was thinking,
no,
like, it's a good
every
thing
year. That's why they kept naming past gifts that she's given them. She always gives them rhyming name-based gifts.
Okay, I thought it was just like a big care package or something, like a big Christmas care package, and it had all these rhyming things in it because I missed that bit because I was playing Dream Drop while I was doing this. And I was thinking, like, man, it's a good thing that dye joke made me laugh so hard because this bit just really is not doing it.
No, that's why they were trying to guess about what might have been in the present from this year because they're like, man, it always sucks because it's like, I got clay and I got hay one time, like grass.
That's cute.
It is cute. It's convenient that they both have names that are able to rhyme with a decent number of common nouns. Because I don't think Devin would work.
Do you think like her sister, like when Kayla was pregnant, it was like, please name them. Name your kids something that rhymes with a lot of nouns.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, what would you give Victoria?
You'd have to do some slant rhyming.
Yeah. Okay, so like you said, they finally appreciate because Kayla keeps on delivering broadcasts and like, what's happening with the weather? And she was like, nobody listen to my broadcast. And then they were fighting a little bit during trivia and stuff, but then when they're like, we need to do the phone charger, we're at the Square One Club, and I'm like, okay, obviously you're gonna be able to build a phone charger because you have a bunch of stuff there. And he's like, well, I don't know how to do it. And he's like, Cooper, I remember you did the science fair project with the bicycle. I don't know how to wire like a step down transformer or whatever we need for it. And Mom's like, I can do that. I'm basically an engineer. And they're like, well, but what? And she was like, I'm literally a scientist. They're like, you are? She's like, what do you think a meteorologist is? It has ologist at the end, you guys. I'm not, unless you're like a mixologist. Like, come on.
I zoned out there for a second because I was trying to think of things that rhyme with your name. And the first thing I thought of was heaven. And then a part of my brain was just like... No, my brain was just like, give Devin the entire continent of heaven. And then I just kind of paused and I was just like, there's so many things that just are happening in that sentence and none of them work.
I'm flashing back to Free Season 2, where Nagisa tells Makoto, he's like, my parents are making me move to Pangea. And he's like, come on, guys, we have to save them. And Rei and Haru are just like... continent of heaven.
Nagisa's like the best character in Free. Nagisa's the best character in Free because of his backstory. And I will fight people on that. He's not my favorite character, but I think he's the best character.
Okay. I'm really glad.
No, wait. I just remembered that the pink-haired guy exists.
I said Kisame is the best character.
Kisame is the best character.
It's really nice to see the Calhouns back. It is nice to see them all working together. They're meshing their skills and they all fit together. They're big science smarty family and it's great.
And sport.
Well, no, I mean Cooper also knows science stuff. That's what I'm saying. Like they all have enough common overlap in science, and that's what helped them to work together.
They're like at the end, they're like, it's a good thing we know all this science, or else we would be dead in the snow.
Yeah, otherwise we'd have literally died. So, since we're gonna have this like soft 4-parter with the snowstorm, like we said, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be switching between characters each episode. I'm really curious if they're connected, like we said. In particular, excuse me, the thing that I was really expecting, like, oh, this is probably going to tie into another episode if they don't specify, because it feels like they purposefully didn't, is who is this kid with the traumatic brain injury that they're like...
Yeah, I was thinking maybe that might be...
It felt like so dire, and the fact that they said it was like a kid made me really feel like it's going to be someone that we know, but they didn't specify anything, so it could just be a write-off and they made it a kid to like up the stakes, so you're like, oh no,
it could be like a new
it's
character.
Extra important to save them, but I don't know, there's part of me...
Watch it be like a character we really, really care about. Watch it be, this is the return of Barrett.
Well, I don't know if he's a kid
anymore. This is where he's been hospitalized this whole time.
But yeah, I was gonna say, it felt like it is possible with the way it was written that it was just like, oh, you know, we made it a kid and we made it a traumatic brain injury so that it would be something really high stakes. So it's like, you have to get there. It's really urgent. It's a kid. So you feel extra emotional. Like, oh, you have to get there. We don't care if some old person dies. It's bigger stakes if it's a kid. But also the way that I felt like enough details were left out. I don't remember if they even used any pronouns, like when they talked.
I think they said it was a guy.
The nurse talked. I feel like that might be right, but
I think they said it was a little boy.
It was vague enough.
I could be wrong.
It was vague.
I was playing Dream Drop Distance while I was doing this, and I was lost, so I was annoyed.
It was vague enough that I was like, I feel like they're purposefully not telling us, and they're teasing us about who it is. So maybe one of these other episodes is gonna unfold. Like, let's say it's Wyatt, for example. And one of these episodes is going to be...
I am genuinely worried about Wyatt now. He was the first person I thought of.
And it's going to lead up to and possibly past that event. And it's going to explain that. Like, they're going to tie together in that kind of way. Like, not just they happen simultaneously, but a more direct, like, connections of causal events that tie everything together.
Yeah.
Which would be interesting. In the web doc, Bob he's having a beach staycation inside of his house. And it cuts through a bunch of clips of past web docs where he's in the snow performing activities. Most of it is them talking to a meteorologist, and he's talking about what he does for work and talking about how he uses the green screen and stuff like that. He actually had a really funny anecdote. He's like, I got bit by the weather bug really early. Like, I've always been really interested in weather. But when he described how he went into it as a career, it was a very funny anecdote. And he was like, I used to play baseball in high school, and in professional baseball, if you succeed on like 3 out of every 10 hits, that's only a 30% success rate, but you'll be in the Hall of Fame with stats that good. And I couldn't do that, but I thought, what's another career where people have really low expectations for your success rate, and it's still considered perfectly fine. Weather forecasting.
All right. Way to self-roast, my guy.
Extremely funny. Kids talk about their favorite things to do in the snow. And then it goes back, it focuses more on what he does behind the scenes. And like you said, I'd honestly never really thought before that meteorologists on individual news stations did their own specific research from like the raw weather data on the weather that is going to happen. Like, I guess I always thought they were just fed the information, like you said, on a teleprompter. Obviously, they talked about this in the job where Kayla got the job, because obviously Jillian thought she could just walk in there and be on camera. I knew you need to know some stuff. I knew you need to study meteorology.
Well, me listening to this episode, I was like, I know Kayla's doing the work herself because of everything with Jillian and because Kayla's based. Not that Jillian isn't, but like everyone else.
Yeah, like I know it's a field of study and all, but I guess I thought there are people who study meteorology with a focus in like journalism, and there are people who study it with a focus on like physics and earth sciences and stuff like that.
I thought it was kind of like you do. First off, I'm proud of myself for remembering the word meteorology and not having to ask you what it was. I thought it would be like for weather, meteorologists would like write everything down and figure it out. And then they would like give the information to like all these different places, and then all the weather people.
Well, exactly.
Would just,
yeah,
like,
I was like, I thought like they're the people who predict the models and generate the forecasts, and they figure out all that data for everywhere, and they send out to places. And then there's the people who did study meteorology, but their background was like in, I know some stuff about the weather, and I also studied broadcast, and I am just like reading the data that other people have predicted from the models. But he was like, no, I mean, obviously I'm taking data from models, but I'm still like taking moderately raw data, figuring out the trends and patterns and a way to like figure out what it means to create the forecast, and then also figure out a way to present it in a way that is engaging to the audience.
So what did he say?
All that stuff, basically, that I just said.
Oh, okay, so it's a combo of like you do the work yourself, but also you get help from
you do both people. Of it, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not like a separate job. I mean, like I said, obviously there are meteorologists who aren't on TV, but it's like, oh, the people who do the weather forecast, they also do the research. They're not just like reading a script someone else wrote for them.
I thought meteorology was just like the weather. Is it other stuff too?
It's weather. It's the study of climate and weather.
Oh, because you were talking about like the planet and journalism.
Well, because I was saying journalism in terms of like, you know, people study journalism to be like news anchors and stuff like that. Doing the weather is part of being on the news. So I would assume you would study some broadcast and journalism if you're going to be like a weather person on TV, because you need to study, you know, like how to be on camera and like how to present to people, like oratory stuff and stuff like that. And physics and earth sciences, like I'm saying, like that's what, you know, understanding like the physics of like wind patterns and the ways that they like interact and stuff like that, like to figure out what weather will do, because it is like one of the most complex things to predict, which is why it is, you know, it's a lot better than it used to be, like a rolling forecast. But I mean, you go back 50 years and a 5-day forecast, I think, had like a 10% accuracy rate. I mean, you had better odds.
Could be worse.
You had better odds assuming the weather was going to be the exact opposite of what the forecast said, because weather is it is infinitely easier to predict where planets will be 100 million years in the future from now than it is to predict what the weather will be 3 weeks from now, because the atmosphere has a lot more factors that we can't all complex at once, because every single air molecule is moving and doing differently, and it's like the height of chaos theory.
Me at every single air molecule. How are you doing?
So, that is
Do we not have anything else to say? We didn't really say much.
We didn't say that much. I really like the Calhoun's characters. I'm glad that they're like,
I like all of them.
We're all going together, and we're all going to work together and combine our skills to get you there.
I like the importance placed on both Kayla and Joseph's jobs, because we don't always get that with the parents. Like Mary Barkley didn't really have a job for quite a while. David Parker, for the life of you, for the life of both you and me, what does he do?
It was architecture or something.
Is it?
Yeah. Because I don't remember what episode it was exactly, but someone had to go to his office and ask about blueprints for a building for City Hall or something.
Okay.
And that's where we're like...
It was the mayor's house.
And that's where we're like, oh, that's what he does. It was... I think it was the same album...
I know more about
to the sandwich episode.
Abuela's job than I know about David.
It's true.
So yeah, I don't have much to say. I think it was okay. I like the dynamics. I don't have really any strong opinions.
I feel like a lot of my feelings... Well, not necessarily a lot of my feelings, but I feel like I still have a lot of expectations and kind of unknowns about how I feel about this episode that's dependent on, like, the coming ones, because I have a lot of, like, unknowns about, like, how is it going to tie in or not tie in to these next 3 episodes.
Are we rating these individually?
Apparently.
Okay.
That seems to be what we're doing at this moment, so I guess so.
Are we recording between listening to them?
Yes, that's why we're doing this one today.
Okay.
At your suggestion, I believe. But it was a while ago.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I don't remember that.
Because I don't think I thought of it until you brought it up, and I was like, oh, it's a good idea. Just in case they are tied together, then we can talk about them.
Oh, you know what it was? It was me just I can't talk today. It was me just, like, generally asking, because I was like, these are semi-multi-parter. Yeah. And you get aggro every time I break the whole rule about listening.
I think it's a good idea because we don't know how connected they could be, so I think it's interesting to not know.
I didn't really think about it until we started talking about it, and I actually listened to the episode, but, like, yeah, there is actually predictions that can be done about what the other episodes are like.
Yeah.
So, I am hoping this next one is the Whittaker one because,
like I said, I think
I've seen
it is
the album art, so I know they're going to be an episode, but beyond that, I don't know who the other ones are about. I'm thinking one might be, like...
I feel like we knew one. I saw a family
Connie,
name
Jules,
a while ago, and I forgot. The Perkins
maybe?
Or the Parkers, at least one
of those. One could be
two.
Parkers. One could be... I would absolutely love a Kendall Meltzner Christmas together. I don't think it would happen.
That would be too much to hope for.
But Victoria. It would be, like, the best thing ever. You know what? I want a combined Kendall, Meltzner,
Whittaker,
Jillian, and my brain just
Whittaker
shut
and
off,
Jason's
and
there.
Bassett. I don't think the Whittakers are with them, but I'm saying, like, something that could possibly happen.
Oh, I see.
Is, like, we have the Kendalls together plus Jillian,
because
they're all in a house, so I feel like that's reasonable. Unless Jillian's with her family. We have the Meltzners, who, I don't know, maybe they were, like, hanging out and then they got trapped at their house. Because if we explore this from different angles, we would have, like, the Calhouns who are, like, at their house, we're going to go on vacation and leave.
Yeah.
But now they're stuck, but now they have to, like, get to this place.
Yeah.
So, like, in your house, but trying to leave it to go somewhere. We could have an angle of, like, visiting someone's house, and now I can't leave to go back to my house. So we could do that, like, with the Meltzners.
We're stuck here. Now we have to figure out how to pass the time.
Yeah, now we have Christmas together.
Some conflicts are going to arise because we're stuck together.
It's gotten to the point where it's, like...
Which is kind of what the January episode for this year was.
Because, like, whenever there's an episode with Buck, or there's an episode with Jules, I just kind of go in assuming that the other is going to be there, too. Like... If they're not, I'm fine with that, because honestly, it's gotten to the point where, like, I don't hate it when they're together, but I also think, like...
They also need time to be able to develop separately.
separately.
We don't want another Richard Blackard kind of thing.
Yeah. And also, like, I feel like they're in a place where if they are going to become Christians in the show, they need to do it very separately, because I feel like Buck is a lot farther ahead on his walk than Jules is. So I also think it'd be fun if Penny and Wooten were there, like stuck with the Meltzers and Kendalls and Jillian, and of course Wellington, but that's not gonna... When I was re-listening to Drake the Cosmic Copper tonight, and then Wooten was just like dishing out all the roles, and he was just like, and I'm going to be a British gent, basically, like a little British robot. And I was thinking, like, is the canonical reason that Wooten is good at doing a British accent, like, because of Wellington? Because Wellington, like, makes him pretend to be him? Because of Jess.
I'm Wellington.
Genuinely, like, nails a British accent. Like, he can do an English accent. It sounds great.
Yeah, he can do a bunch of English accents.
Nothing but the half-truth. Like, Wooten just cannot do it when he's pretending to be Wellington.
Yeah.
Which, like, I don't know if that's just because he was trying to imitate, like, Wellington's fake British accent, or because
I would assume he
isn't good at doing a British accent. Maybe he just thinks, like, Wellington just has a crap British accent. He's like, I'm so much better. That's why he's, like, good at doing one. He was like, I had to do one better than my brother. I don't know.
Okay, so, I'm gonna give this episode, I feel a 3.9 out of 5. I don't know, I kept on feeling like there was more that was gonna happen. It felt like...
I think there's gonna be stuff elaborated on, probably. Maybe more stuff with the Calhoun.
By the time that they left the house, it was a relatively straight line from, like, we're driving, the car gets stuck, and then we sled down, we get in, figure out how to get into Wally's and then get to the hospital. I don't know, it felt like there was kind of less plot beats going on overall than I was expecting.
It didn't feel as, like, dire as I think it wanted me to feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm sure if there is an episode where we find out who that kid is, which there might be,
it would retrospectively add tension to this.
Yeah, have that conflict and tension and drama. But right now, we don't exactly have that. I think this episode, like you said before, is probably going to be elevated in retrospect by the other episodes.
Yeah.
But
because I don't think these are meant to stand alone. Well, they're meant to be able to stand alone, but they're not designed that way.
Did Kathy write all 4, or were they all written by other people?
I do not know.
Because
I'm going to guess they were not all written by Kathy, because that would be a pretty heavy writing load.
That'd be kind of fun if it was like each person gets one Christmas episode.
I mean, and it makes sense that they would write it that way. I mean, when we were trying to predict what would happen, right? It's like, we want to figure out, okay, who are going to be in these episodes, because we're expecting, like, a different family, and, like, they're all probably going to have, like, a different idea to what's happening to these people. Like you talked about, like, we're stuck in the house, we need to get to this place, or, like, we're not in our house, but now we're stuck in here with other people, different tropes that everyone is going to be stuck in, so we can figure out those, we can figure out who's in the episode. I'm
imagining one is probably going to be, like, trying to help out people who might have lost their power or something like that.
Probably.
Like, give them food if they can't
cook. Or, like, bringing blankets and firewood around, so stuff like that.
Like, I'm thinking the Whittaker one might be...
Probably.
That one.
So it makes sense that it's the kind of thing where you could, like, dole out each episode to a different writer, and then just make sure that you hit, these specific, like, crossover points so that they tie together in the right places.
Kayla needs to have her weather report. At this point, they need to be at the hospital.
Mention this thing. When I didn't get the impression when Kayla recorded her thing that it was a live broadcast. I thought she was just recording the audio and then sending it for them to air. So I didn't get the impression that it was airing live as she was saying it. but I could be wrong. So I don't know if that'll necessarily be like kind of, like the moment of like the thing where you're like, this is the big event that syncs up all of our watches across the different stories. That would be cool if it is. I don't know if it necessarily will be, because I didn't get the get the impression that it was a live broadcast as she was recording it.
Because
but I could be
reflecting on like other series that have done this kind of thing, where it's like multiple episodes happening in the same time frame. There's usually like a focal point.
That one thing where you're like,
can tie them all together.
This is that moment. You hear the
and
explosion
then you can just like
somewhere.
branch out all the points from the central.
Exactly. Or there's a bright flash of light in the sky, something that different places in different parts in this story, a character can see the same thing from everywhere and be like, I know what moment it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then also you can use that to predict what else is going to happen in the story afterwards. And you're like, there was a lightning strike here.
Exactly.
In 2 minutes, the power's going to go out.
Yeah, we love that kind of thing, yeah. So I hope that you're right, because that's a really good idea.
Thank you. I'm usually not that big on episodes that happen concurrently, which I think I said before when we originally did our predictions, because I usually find one of them to be more superior to the others, and the other ones just to kind of be like lacking.
Like they're just there to fill out the idea.
Like it feels like one just had like considerably more effort put into it. And then the other ones in comparison, it's like, usually this is the case if it was like this one person writing all of it.
Yeah.
Where they're like kind of held back by like things they have to do.
Exactly.
Especially if it's like characters in one specific setting. And it's like, we know they can't run into each other. And then you write
everything else around the other one.
Yeah, so it's like, it kind of has
General
this serendipity effect.
Wars.
So like, my go-to thought is always, I don't know if you remember this episode, I think it was like in season 4 or something of MLP. There's that episode where they went to like the Crystal Kingdom.
Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah,
now
and then Spike was with the pets.
Yeah.
And I remember just like hating this Spike episode so much. Because it felt like, part of it's probably just the fact that it felt like a pet shenanigan episode. And I just
I think that was the main thing. It was the fact that it was just Spike and all of the pets.
Yeah, it was just basically like animal slapstick for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I loathe this. But there's also been other episodes.
There's a reason it's on our Odyssey animated show bingo card.
Where it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't really hit. But I'm hoping I enjoy these.
I mean, I think apart from while I was listening to this beforehand, I feel like we weren't thinking so much that they would be concurrent as they would be sequential. I was thinking
they would either be around the same like time frame, or they would all happen at the same time. Because like when I don't know, I think I found out like all the power goes out in Odyssey, and like in the way the description was, because that's the reason why I mentioned like the MLP concurrent episodes in the first place.
The fact that everyone loses power at the same time, and that's a known event. The fact that Kayla makes these maybe live broadcasts, and that's a known event that everyone would be tuning into.
And the fact that we have time frame around the hospitalization.
And the fact that we have a mystery injury that happened before this episode that sounds like it could be something that we're going to find out about. Those are all definitely clues that would lean towards the idea of like multiple concurrent storylines.
I'm thinking most likely all the episodes are going to start off on the same note of just like hearing the news that all the flights are canceled and everyone's snowed in.
Do you feel negatively about the narrative vehicle for Signed, Sealed, and Committed? Like For Whom the Wedding Bells Toll?
Like,
because that kind of does that. I mean, Jason's delivering it retroactively. But he's like, here's one story, here's the second story, here's the third story, and they all kind of have events that overlap happen at the same time. And then in part 3, it's like, okay, now here's the conclusion of all these stories happening at the same time, all cut together.
No, I'm totally fine with For Whom the Wedding Bells Toll. Like, there's There's like a little bit of overlap, but honestly, it's not that much.
I guess the thing is,
usually in stuff like this, it's like a completely whole story and another completely whole story.
That's what I was going to say.
So you have to watch the ending and the beginning like a bunch of times, and I hate it when there's like a ton of stuff repeated. It's like when you keep on dying in a video game and you have to keep watching like the cutscene
it's
over
like
again.
what the sequel to Happy Death Day didn't do because it's an amazing movie.
It's exactly what the sequel to Happy Death Day didn't do, because it's the best sequel ever.
The best horror movie sequel ever made.
The best horror movie sequel ever.
What was I going to say?
But that movie
I see what you mean, because in
so.
these other cases we're talking about, it's like, here are separate self-contained episodes that take place at the same time. I have references. I keep wanting to say, like, 3 things in a row because Signed, Sealed, and Committed. I'm like, it's not that. And then my brain wants to say
truth.
Truth.
Also with Signed, Sealed, and Committed,
Truth,
you
Trivia,
have,
and
like,
Trina.
none of the stories had actually concluded yet.
Yeah. I'm
if they had all concluded and Jason had to go over, like, the 3 different endings all in the one story, it would have been, like, too much.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's just, like, what's going to happen? Oh, I don't know. We're going to find out. And then you have, like, a full episode happening, like, in real time. Great.
I keep going to say Signed, Sealed, Committed, and then my brain's like, no, that's the album name. And so my brain's like, no, it's Truth, Trivia, and Trina. And then by the end of that, I'm like, no, that's not right either. For Whom the Wedding Bells Toll, it's like, these are all the same episode. It's not 3 different episodes that take place at the same time. It's an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot, which just happen to not be intercut with each other until the end, like they normally would be in an episode. We have them, like, sorted out into separate stories, and then at the end, they all...
You know what the thing is? It's like, it's like that game we played on Galactic Phone, or whatever it's called, where it's like you draw like a part of one, and then you draw a part of the other, and then you draw a part of like the other, and then like that would be like what the Snow episodes are like, and the MLP episodes.
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
then I would say For Whom the Wedding Bells Toll is more like animation layers, where like one is the background, one is like the characters, and one is the interactive like items. Like they're all their whole thing that you can look at separately, and they just like every now and then just like happen to like touch each other and impact each other, just like in really good, cohesive, smooth ways.
That was so much more musing on general narrative structure than I thought we would have to talk about here.
I feel like that's the metaphor I just came up with, though, like, works.
Yeah.
I think. It could just be because I'm tired. I don't know.
I think we should stop here, though. Did you say your rating?
I said 3.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It'll probably go higher with time. I need to listen to the other parts.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about the second one, which is So On and Snow Forth. But So On and Snow Forth. It's like a double pun because it's confusing. Okay, so that's what we're talking about next. Okay, now we're talking about 919, So On and Snow Forth, written by Phil Lawler and Marshall Younger. What happens, Victoria?
So, in this episode, we really get to relish how chaotic Whit and Wilson get to be now that they've been reunited. Devin started listening to this episode. I think he got probably like a minute or 2 in.
Yeah, like 2 minutes.
And then he was like, I need you to start listening to this. We were live messaging each other while we were listening to it. And because Devin pauses,
it was probably more like
listening,
4 minutes, but because of pauses for notes, you caught up to me, and then we were at the same place.
You actually were a little bit ahead of me
Just
at
barely.
A couple points. So you would send messages and be like, oh no, and I'd be like, what? And then a thing would happen, and I'd be like, oh no. But, so in this episode, Whit and Wilson are working with 3 ladies. We'll get back to who those ladies are.
Real house husbands of Odyssey is what they're being. They are so catty and petty.
And
so good.
Wilson really wants to have a snowball fight with Whit, and Whit's like, I don't have a death wish. So
and he also wants to inflict guilt and emotional labor and guilt upon Wilson. Okay,
so these 3 ladies, one is potentially Doris's sister?
Mother.
Okay.
It seems unlikely because she did mention that she was married and had a husband, and so she probably would have taken his last name. So the fact that she still has Doris's last name kind of solidifies, like, Odyssey doesn't really have a lot of examples of husbands taking their wife's last name. So it seems pretty likely that this is Doris's mother, not her sister.
Yeah, so we got Mrs. Veneropoli, which is cool. We have...
the most unexpected
Penny's
cameo.
Mom, Eleanor. And we have Horace's mom, which Devin got me really hyped up over. He was just like, someone's shown up who is a reasonable character to show up, but we've never met them before. And I was like, well, who does this mean? And then I heard Veneropoli. And I was like, oh, it's that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry.
And then Devin was just like, it's Horace's mom. And I was just like,
no.
What?
No, I was just explaining, because you were saying, like, okay, this is Penny's mom. I was like, yeah. And you're like, and here's someone. I was saying it's Horace's mother, just to explain to you. That isn't the Dolores is the one I was excited about.
Yeah, obviously. I know, but the way we were messaging each other, it made it sound like you were excited about Horace's mom, and I was just like, weird, but okay.
Also, this is the second episode Horace she's been in, Horace is our king.
So...
I said it was someone
Horace
we never heard from before.
Yeah. I don't know if you saved any of our messages.
I saved one of them.
Oh, I found them where they are. I will probably just read our chat as we go through this. Honestly, I could probably sum up the episode in the weirdest way possible this way, just by reading the chat.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so either way, please sum it up.
The girls are fighting. The girls are fighting, and over, like, how they want to make the clothes that are going to be donated to all these kids who are coming in a bus that Wooten is taking.
They were in a textiles club.
One of the kids is the one who will get injured in the hospital, is my theory about the future. And before I forget to say it, later in the episode we find out the bus doesn't come, so they have to go get it. But that's not what we care about now.
It's also what we care about bus. It's just Wooten is driving a minivan or whatever.
The girls are fighting, and basically they want someone to say whose fashion choices when it comes to making clothes are the best. And they want it to be Whit or Wilson, pretty much. They're leaning towards Whit. And Whit is just like, okay, well, like, I say they're gonna stop fighting because it's the right thing. He's, like, talking one-on-one with Wilson. They're like, we're gonna make a bet. Which says, I think they're gonna stop fighting.
First
I can get them to stop fighting.
To explain things properly.
Okay.
Whit tried to resolve the problem, and Wilson's like, that's not gonna fix it. And Whit's like, yes, it will. And I'll bet you on it. And also, in general, these women are part of a textiles club, and there's a bunch of other members, but they're the only ones here today. A bunch of kids are going to be coming shortly who are poor, and they're being driven by a whole bunch of different people are going to be dropping them off. But the biggest group is coming with Wooten.
See, I was messaging you the whole time, so yeah, I probably missed details. I was trying not to get too behind at the same time. I couldn't pause at any point when I was sending you messages.
You could.
No, because you were sending me things before they were happening, and I wanted to catch up with you.
Well, I was also sending you things, like things would happen to me, and then I'd wait a minute before sending them to you, so that you would have already.
You were even farther ahead of me then.
Yeah, so you could have told me that you weren't there yet, and I would have stopped because I was waiting and then sending them to make sure that I wasn't sending you things before they happened.
You think I would think ahead? You expect that from me?
So you could have said, "Hey, this didn't happen yet. Shush or slow down."
It's like that thing we talked about last time where we both just independently do everything and then hope that it lines up.
That's true. That's a good point.
Except for real. Life imitates art. Not that this is art. So it's like, I can get them to stop fighting and everything will be good and they'll all get along by the time all the kids show up. And if I do, then you, Wilson...
Well, I think Wilson is the one who initiated the
Okay, yeah. Well, Whit's part of the bet. I'm going to get to Wilson's after, because I think Wilson's is funnier than Whit's. I don't know if you agree with that.
Oh, no, I think Whit's is 100 times funnier.
Whit is like, okay, I'll do Wilson's then. Wilson's like, I don't think you can get them to stop arguing. And I think they're going to keep arguing. And if I'm right that they're still fighting and can't make up their minds, then you have to do that snowball fight that I want to do with you. And I'm going to murder you, basically, with snowballs. And you're not going to survive it because you're insanely old. And Whit's like, okay, well, if I'm right and I win, then you have to go when you do like your little sermon for all the kids when they get here and give your testimony about how you were a big bully who ruined my life when you were little and you're so repentant about how mean you were to me. And Wilson's like, well, I'm not going to lose.
And so you have to make a big weepy apology to me in front of everyone and prostrate yourself in front of me.
Yeah. And
kiss my
Wilson
rings
and Whit try to like undermine each other's progress throughout the episode. Wilson goes behind Whit's back and gets like all the women on his side, and then near the end they're like, "Why are we fighting? We need to get along."
Whit is still reasonably trying to like actually get them to work together and stuff. So it's like he's trying to win a bet, but he is also trying to do the right thing. Whereas
like,
Pasternox...
You're supposed to make clothes for people who need clothes.
Whereas Pasternox is going and actively, like, sabotaging and sowing discord and chaos among them. And
it's like,
sabotaging
you know what? I'll make the clothes. And then he makes the most god-awful looking thing they've ever seen. And all of them are like, what's wrong with you? Get out of here. And then they're like, we'll make it.
I love Whit's plan there because he's 1000% correct that the best way to get people to work together is to give them a common enemy. It's like how they said the best way to get accurate information on the internet is not to ask a question, it's to provide wrong information and then wait for someone to correct you.
Don't take this recommendation, people, please. There's enough bad information out there. And so everyone basically ends up in a place where it's like, we shouldn't have fought. And then they find out that the kids got stranded because the snowstorm's happening. I was right, and we hear the broadcast. And I was also right that like they would be stuck in their house and then try and get to other people and help them and provide resources. In this case, it was clothes, but that was something planned before the power outage.
It's kind of, in that sense, not at all what you were talking about.
I was still right that they were going to do like a charity thing on Christmas.
It had nothing to... What you thought was going to happen was everyone was going to get stuck and we're going to go around and try and help the people who are stuck. That is 0% what this is.
They're going to help the kids who are stuck.
They're going to go try and rescue a specific group of people. They're not going around house to house, door to door, trying to provide firewood and food for people. That's what your idea was.
They're still trying to go help people, whatever. I was right about the broadcast.
Yes, you were.
And yeah, let me just see. And then Whit and Wilson are like, let's put our bet on hold. But no, it better come back. Let me see. Wilson is gonna kill Whit for taking all his theater roles. We can play a game. You can guess who said what. Who do you think said that one?
You said that. I remember that.
Okay, yeah.
We don't need to make a game out of it. I remember who said what. The only thing that I screen capped because it really stood out to me was you saying...
Wait, no, I want to read it. You said Whit is the pettiest character in this show. And then I said, I'm glad Whit and Wilson have barely grown up from the books. Whit, holy crap. He's like, you gotta tell a bunch of judgy preteens and wine moms that you suck in front of people. I want Whit to lose and get pelted. Horace's mom is a bohemian. Every night before going to bed, Wilson prays for the chance to wreck Whit's day. What a king. You saying Wilson hasn't changed at all. Me saying, bless him, I wholly approve. Whit is fighting for his life. Okay.
I mean, I think we can all recap this. There's only one quote from you in particular that I think is really
this
gold
quote,
and needs to be repeated.
Wilson, only cowards and weaklings experience character development in a way that changes their personality. Am I a Christian? Yes. Am I a gremlin? Yes. Am I here to ruin Whit's life? Yes.
There we go. So, this is a great episode. We got Eleanor, we got Horace's mother back, and we found out their last name. And we got Doris Rathbone's mother, which is wild, because it's been well over a decade since Doris appeared on the show, or any Rathbone. So it was wild to have her mom show up, with the only clue being her last name, which of course is only previously mentioned in one episode.
Also, her personality.
And her accent and her appetite and everything else about her personally.
Literally everything about her.
So, Whit and Wilson are fantastic in this. Whit immediately at the start of the episode calls Wilson out for being a snot-nosed bully when they were kids, and Wilson is like, I may be 97 years old, but I'm going to cream you into the dust and the mud with
I don't care that you're my brother-in-law. I've killed for less.
They're so petty and bratty and catty in this episode. I love it. The fact that Wilson is like, yes, we made this bet, and yes, I'm a pastor, and I kept on thinking about the half episode with Nick Mulligan where his friend like became a Christian, and he's like, nah, it's not real, and he keeps on like trying to tempt him to doing wrong, and then Whit's like, remember what we talked about? Who tempts people to do wrong? The devil. And is that who you want to be like? No. And I just kept on thinking of that as Wilson is like, I'm going to actively be like, do you really want Whit telling you what to do? Look, he's trying to manipulate you. He's trying to control you guys. He thinks that, he doesn't know anything about this. You guys are so much smarter than him. Don't let him boss you around. Don't let him fool you and gaslight you.
You know, the best part for me is, like, Wilson does apologize at the end. And it does come off as, like, a quote-unquote sincere apology, but in the way where two little kids were fighting, and then their parents were like, go apologize. And they're like, I'm sorry. And it means nothing. Like, another thing I wrote was, later on in the notes was like, Wilson says, I'm sorry. Wilson internally, I'm still planning on winning that bet.
Like, the ladies finally realize, they're like, hey, you're just trying to manipulate us. Which is 100% correct. Whit and Wilson, both of them, even though Whit had good intentions through it initially, like, they were both betting on how they could control them. Like, this is a high school rom-com, and they're trying to bet on whether or not they could, like, convince someone to go out to prom with them.
This is my favorite Whit episode in such a long time. I'm so glad Wilson is a character. He's so entertaining. Like, Wilson probably is my favorite character from the Young Whit books.
I want to
get
get more flashback stuff from Wilson's perspective, like the one episode where it made Whit out to be the bully, and you don't find out till the end that this bully is actually Whit, and we get the other side,
Whit and Jack,
the other side of the unreliable narration. Yeah, I really want more of that.
I love that Wilson existing. Like, ever since the Rydell revelation, I've been on this, like, I don't really know how to word it properly. Not quite this, but, like, for lack of a better word, villain Whit kick. Pretty much. Where it's just like, you know what? He deserves to be taken down a couple pegs. Yeah. I love Whit. I think he's wonderful. Anyone thinks this means I hate him? I do not hate him. He's one of my favorite characters. That being said, sometimes it's really
I think he really deserves to get his corruption arc time.
Get, like, kicked in the teeth. And, like, Whit is one of those, like, paragons. He's, like, Mr. Perfect. So just seeing people just, like, casually come in an episode and be like, I'm gonna ruin your day, makes me so happy. Because if it's Wilson, it's like there's a scale. There's someone ruining Whit's day in, like, a fun, loving way, like Wilson, and then there's, like, actual villain. Like, nothing bad is gonna happen to Whit. It's low stakes. It's just, like, fun sibling tearing at each other banter.
I love it.
And it's, like, so much fun.
When media releases multiple streams within the same universe at once, and it's like, even though these things aren't necessarily, like, simultaneous or featuring the same characters, they do, like, a Homestuck's, like, circumstantial simultaneity thing where there's, like, related themes happening at the same time that things are being released. The MCU does this a lot between TV shows and movies, and has things like line up thematically with when they release, even if it's not necessarily like a direct plot correlation. Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did that a lot in the early seasons.
Are you talking about how Phase 4 has been mostly about grief?
No, what I'm talking...
Are you talking about, like, events happening at the same time?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how, like, we saw sorcery introduced in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the exact same time that Doctor Strange came out as a film. So it's we're introducing the concept of magic at the same time in like different independent ways. In here, I'm talking about Whit's corruption arc, showing us how like at the same time we have in the audio show, we have like the Rydell revelations and Whit being super sketchy ethically, and also we're seeing him being really like bratty and unforgiving with Wilson, grudges of debt like almost a full century. And at the same time, we're seeing him as
they're so old.
And at the same time, the books are coming out where we're seeing Whit as a child, where he's like, yeah, I'm going to be petty and I'm going to do things just so that I can flip Wilson off. Yes, I'm going to break into government property like frequently and commit crimes.
Am I going to apologize?
Commit crimes and do violence.
Will I mean it? No.
It's great. I love it. Anyways, as you
Wilson's
predicted,
such a little brat, and I absolutely adore him. Like that's one of my favorite kinds of characters. Just like the little like bully kid who actually has
Wilson's
a multifaceted personality,
like giving little puppy dog eyes and being like, "Oh, I'm just a poor little pastor."
Is entertaining and can take the main character down a peg without actually like genuinely hurting them, and will be like a friend of the main character later on, like the best kind of character, like Amity in the Owl House, or like Pacifica in Gravity Falls.
Wilson's like, being a little brat and giving puppy dog eyes about it and trying to be cute about it, even though he's in his late 90s, and it's really good.
And you know what? It's working. We love that for him.
So, as you predicted, almost at the end of the episode, because it was the cabin at one of the cabins at Tom's farm. This is where we spent the episode.
Because they mentioned Becky in this one.
Yes. And they're like, okay, we're going to go. They go out the front door and they're like, oh, we are snowed in. We are like, this. We have to call this off. We need to stop everyone coming here and stuff. And then that's when they hear Kayla's broadcast come through, which gives us like our sync moment, our clapboard.
You know that like
watch
meme
synchronization
where it's like the two people looking over the roof and is like, you seeing this? That's just like Wilson with his trio of fates, basically just like looking down at Whit below.
With the fates being
the three ladies.
Why are they looking down at Whit?
No, just because never mind. The meme's just like when you see something, you're like, unbelievable, right?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Just Wilson saying that about Whit's entire personage.
I thought, because we were talking about being snowed in, that's why I was confused. I was like, Whit discovered it at the same time as them. I understand the joke.
Wilson saying it about the snow, but also Whit as a person.
Yeah. So, the snow, Kayla's broadcast, and Whit talked about how he would go on sleigh rides with Tom and the kids through town, and that was really sweet. It sounded like they were specifically talking about like caroling. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, everyone got the message except for we couldn't get through to Wooten, who was bringing a number of kids with him. So I was like, I guess this is one of the things that will probably be covered in the two coming eps, because it kind of leaves on a very open end with that. They're like, Wooten's still out there. We have to get him.
It's going to be about Wooten, but if that one is the one where the kid's injured, then I think that's going to be the last one.
I know.
Or it could be split over
from grabbing the episodes, I know enough about the descriptions in the art now that I know the general structure of the remaining two episodes, so I won't talk too much to them.
You're not allowed to predict then.
Exactly.
That's the rule. That means I get all the prediction points.
Well, going through with our general predictions from before, other people, and it'll be more like simultaneous stuff happening. This one will carry forward from the end of this into, I guess maybe some stuff from before, but it'll cover Wooten and the kids, and the same one or a different one will cover like, hey, who is the person who has received traumatic brain injury that required desperate neurosurgery?
I go into each episode now, and I'm just like, where's Jillian? It's been so long.
And then the web doc, it alternates between watching Bob learn about making ice cream at a local ice creamery and watching the rest of the team try and work together to prep a lasagna. The web content...
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done making ice cream.
the web content, it shows how the art for this episode is specifically modeled after and keeping the same wood paneling for Tom's house that we see on the cover of album 32. And they were like specifically like want to make sure we match. Like there've been some renos over the year, but from the siding and stuff we can see this is still like this is the same cabin / house. I mean, it's not Tom's house, right? In both cases, I think it's probably Timmy's cabin, most likely. That it's like either that or the same construction point. Either way, the point is it's specifically album 32 and this episode art. It's supposed to be like, the same construction, the same pattern for the siding and stuff like that was used for consistency, and I like that. We already have enough stuff that goes on in the art where it's like, that's confusing, that doesn't seem right. That's a really nice, like, specific effort for consistency across the art.
What vibe this episode had? It had the same vibe as like old Eugene Bernard episodes. I think that's why I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
Like the same kind of like family
Dolores
banter rivalry.
Dolores is great. I mean, we had like between Edie and Dolores, Edie is like, everything needs to be beads impractically until like you're like, if you move, you're just going to sound like a ring stick. Whereas Dolores is practical with the clothing. She's like, we need these kids to keep warm. We don't want any extra frills to the point that it's like, just slap a potato sack on them. And Eleanor is trying to keep a practical medium, but she doesn't want to, interject and like have to take sides in it. So she's like, I know it needs to be done, but I don't want to be the one to do it. Whit, you can take care of it.
I feel like that's in character for Eleanor, considering all this stuff with like Penny and her sister.
And Frank. She has to mediate between her daughters, and she also has to mediate between Frank and the rest of the people
when I said,
I
meant like her own sister also, like coming out of that episode.
Exactly,
just being like, I think I need to be like a little bit more passive and a little bit less argumentative and more willing to hear people out. So I'd say that's like carried over character development from that episode.
Dolores is great because not only obviously is she keeping the same accent as Doris, but she is just like stuffing her face constantly, where she's just like pouring like hot sauce and soy sauce and pork rinds into her mouth, and it's like, you need a napkin for all that. She's like,
to listen to.
That's okay.
But
I
at
have
the
long
same time, I was
sleeves on
like,
this
I
one.
missed
Yeah,
the
she's
rap.
like wiping globs of hot sauce off her face with the sleeves of her sweater and stuff like that.
Yeah, that made me cringe real bad. That like that thing with like usually siblings in media where it's just like you bully your sibling and then someone else bullies your sibling and is like, hold on, only I'm allowed to bully my sibling.
I'm familiar.
It's not at all like that with Wilson and Whit. It's just like, yes, please bully them more. It's very funny.
So yeah, this the lesson of the episode itself wasn't anything too groundbreaking. It's like, hey, learn to compromise with each other. In terms of the members of the Bobbins, in terms of Whit and Wilson, try and be a peacemaker, unlike Wilson, and try and do right things for the sake of doing right things, and not just because you're trying to get back at someone else, like Whit was. But in terms of character interactions, this was a really fun episode. It was great that they decided to show us Doris's mom. She was fun as a character, and Whit and Wilson were really, really fun in terms of their interactions with each other in this episode. It was fantastic character interactions.
Easily my favorite Whit Wilson episode. So yeah, I would give this a 4. I think it was fun.
I'll give it a 4.6 out of 5 because I really like the character interactions, and just like a couple points off for just not having as deep or novel as a theme, but like really high points for how enjoyable the character interactions were with Whit and Wilson and Dolores.
I did have a lot of fun listening to it at the same time as you, but at the same time, I feel like I couldn't completely concentrate on it to the point where I
Well, you could have said that, and I would have not messaged you about things.
I would probably rank it higher if I listened to it again before recording. No, I'm not blaming you or anything. I had fun, but I'm going to say 4+.
Greater than or equal to 4.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all for this episode. What are we finally talking about next time, Victoria? We've already recorded all of it. What's the other thing that we've recorded already?
One?
Yes.
The last one.
Yes, we're starting
album
72.
Opener 2-parter.
Yes.
We got to find out what happens with our girl Olivia.
Yeah. Time to talk our way through what seems like it's going to be a pretty substantial album between the opener and the ominous 3-part finale.
Mm-hmm.
And also Bridget's in there.
And Bridget too.
Yes.
And Jules.
Well, we don't know that yet.
Probably Jules.
Probably.
There's a Buck episode.
Yes. Okay. So that's what we're talking about next time. Until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackard. And
yep, you are.
You've been watching The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Goodbye.